Hello everyone, hello and welcome to this Z Nights event. If the audio quality and the connection is good, then we can start the first presentation. Okay, let's start the first presentation. I am Balint and this talk is presented to you by the Payment Tools team from Szeged, Hungary. Four of us would like to share our multi-year journey on how a little application grown to be a platform by splitting up into a modular architecture. First, let's go through the agenda. First, we would like to talk about what is Pacman, what was our motivation behind the splitting, how we achieved this modularity. Then we will talk about the tool that we had to use. Then we would like to speak about our inner sourcing model, then present some lessons learned, then our tech stack and our future goals. Okay, so what exactly is Pacman? This is a payments configuration management tool, an internal configuration tool with multiple modules to handle rules for different use cases. It has a collection of cost-cutting functionalities like publishing to S3 buckets, authorization and authentication, XLS support and auditing. The UI looks something like this. First, we have the business operators who are the users of this tool. They set up rules on the UI, then the rules are persisted in the database, and then later on it can be published to S3 buckets for our services that are integrating with this tool. So why split up the application? In the beginning, we had a simple service that was something like this, just a simple DB and a simple S3 bucket for our publishing. Then came other requirements, other modules that somewhat complicated the picture. So we quickly realized that we have the common microservice motivation, microservice splitting motivations, because these modules were decoupled and self-contained, and these could be deployed independently. So other teams started to develop modules into the ecosystem as well. Due to this, we had to start supporting the inner sourcing model. And this came pretty easily with the emergence of the tool, which we will talk about later on. So this all sounds pretty nice, but in reality, the splitting a live application where the main focus is to keep existing functionality alive while we had to implement new functionalities both into the new and the old stack as well, while migrating different user groups and services between the old and new stack, and doing all this in 5 different environments simultaneously is very hard. So I will let Zoltan talk about the technical details of this split.
Okay, thank you, Balint. My name is Zoltán Mozula, and I would like to talk about our journey, how we split our architecture from the backend perspective. And it started with some design sessions where we identified our future steps. And after we started from bottom to top, that's why the first step is the database split. If you have seen the previous picture, our application had a huge database at first, and later we decided, because of the shame evolution handling, to split this huge database into smaller ones for each individual module. So we started this, and I collected some points here, what you should look out for if you'd like to do something similar, because it was a one Spring Boot application, which means that we had to add some multiple persistent contexts in one application, which was a bit tricky. And after that, because of this, each persistent context and the data source had their own connection pools. And because of this, we had some troubles with the database connection numbers. So we talk about this later. Csaba will talk about this later in the lessons learned section. And in connection with this, we had to modify the transaction handling annotation. We had to review all of our code and add some settings into this transaction handling. And because we use Flyway for schema evolution handling, we couldn't use the out-of-the-box solution. We had to initialize and configure this Flyway from configuration files, Java files. So it was a bit tricky. And the next step was to decoupling our source code, because all of our modules were in just simple Java packages. So we did some investigations and found that two approach can be a good way. Gradle submodules and the Java modules. We went with the Gradle submodules, and we started to extract these source code into Gradle submodule projects with their own build Gradle files. And I added also the lookout for section, because we had some troubles with, for example, the test coverage reports. We had our merge test coverage report for our entire application, and after we did this submodule thing, then the IntelliJ didn't support it too much, because it was an unconventional Gradle project. We had to do some tricky Gradle scripting, Groovy scripting, so it was a bit tricky. And beside of this, we had to review all of our library dependencies. I mean here that all of our modules had their own Java libraries, dependencies, third-party dependencies, and we had to add one by one these into these sub-projects. And as I've mentioned, Csaba will tell you more about the Java modules, why we decided that we will go with the Gradle submodules. The next step, while we did this Gradle submodule extraction, we identified that we had to have a core application, an additional Gradle subproject, where the whole entry point of the application can have their LDAP login and the GWT handling. We could add our monolith UI there, and we added some aggregating functionality for preparing for the distributed architecture. The shared library was the second sub-project what we identified, and we added all of our common functionality like authentication, authorization, and we had different abstract classes, helper classes, and cross-cutting services like S3 bucket handling. So we added all of these into one shared library and one sub-project. The next step was Docker, around the Dockerizing. What we skipped, we had more time, and we could skip this step. But if we had less time, we would have done this, and I mean, we would have turned our Gradle subproject into independent Spring Boot applications and Docker images. and all of these could run on a standalone virtual machine. But at this point, we would have just one source code, one GitHub repository. So we went further, and the real split was here because we started to extract all of our source code into separate Git repositories. So we moved all of our sub projects into real grader projects. So the real split was here, and beside of this, we added some proxy functionality for the core, and because the shared was an additional library, we had to add some release and versioning processes to add all of the modules as an external dependency. So that was a huge step, and after that we could start the deployment. We did some deployment pipeline with the tool, what will be mentioned in the next slides. And because of this, we had to AWS account. Because of this, we had a bunch of access issues, APIs, and we had a lot of issues around S3 buckets. Csaba will tell you more in the lessons learned section. We added some VPC service functionality, and during this change, we migrate all of our secrets from Vault to AWS Secrets Manager, and we added some more observability support because of the new distributed architecture. And finally, you can see here that we have an independently deployable Pacman core application with the modules behind that. All of these modules are absolutely independent, and all of these, they have their own GitHub repository, their own release process, and with their own databases as well. And beside of this, we have the distributed logging, tracing, and alerting, and dashboards functionality. And at the top, we have some, as I've mentioned, the VPC functionality. So in the VPC, internal and external communication can happen through this from the third-party services. And from the backend side, that's all. Long story in short. And if you pay attention for the Pacman core or web UI at this point in the Pacman core, but we went further, and here I would give the word to Victor.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Victor Spesiak, and I'm going to talk about our UI architecture. So basically, we are coming from a modular monolith front-end application, which was an Angular single-page application. If you look at the diagram, it's part of the Pacman core, and every backend service has its own little piece of UI service in it. And if you think about it, that's going to be our bottleneck on the road of the separation, because every time if you change a service UI, you have to redeploy the Pacman core itself. It's not sustainable, and we are counting on a lot of service. So that's where the micro frontends came into the game. What is micro frontends? It's an architectural design approach inspired and named after microservices. In a nutshell, the idea is simple. You are having an orchestrator, a core application where you can plug in your little front-end applications, and they can work loosely together. The benefit of this model is you can develop simpler and smaller applications, and independent team can collaborate together. Now, let's move on the UI objectives. Our precondition is that we are working together with multifunctional full-stack teams, and they can come from different business areas with their own building processes and UI technologies. So our goal is to support any kind of UI technology stack, even the server-side rendering. The building processes is not really a problem because we only meet the end product of the services pipelines. Running whole application in one micro frontend. It's also an important point because we don't want to invent a new framework which is compose a UI application from little components. And we also wanted to support standalone development mode in order of fast prototyping. If you wish, you could bootstrap your application without our core and just start develop your own business logic. Now let's move on and see the first possible implementation. It's the custom elements or web components. In a nutshell, it's an abstraction where you can mount your front-end application into the HTML DOM. The first pro is it's having better loading and caching, of course, because you can loading the components individually. The communication between components is more convenient because you just pass some parameters to attributes or just call a JavaScript function. The cons are the routing problem if custom elements contains another router library. It's really tricky if you want to sync to a router library. Believe me, we tried it, our proof of concept application creation. No server-side rendering, of course, because it's a single page application technology. Build could be more complex. Shared HTML, CSS, and JavaScript context, and unique lifecycle hooks. If you think about it, the Angular and the React application entry point is not the same, so you have to support all of them, even in different versions. It's a nightmare. The next one is the iframes. A little spoiler, we choose this approach. I believe I don't really have to introduce the iframe HTML tag because it's been there for a long time. But in a nutshell, you can embed the document into another document. It's having isolated context. It's technology agnostic. The frames can communicate through post-message API, which has been introduced in HTML5. The life cycles are the same because we just have to sit on the native iframe events. And it supports server-side rendering, of course, because it's having its own document. The cons are the increased memory footprint, loading time, and CPU. Of course, it's having much higher memory footprint and loading time because when you bootstrap your iframe, you have to download the resources independently, bootstrap your application, and so on. But as it has been mentioned, we are a configuration admin tool. Only operators will use our applications through the desktop environment, so we don't really care about this. Now let's have a look, how does it work? After a successful login, we issue you a JSON web token and redirect you to our dashboard, each tile hiding an external embedded module. If you register your application, you will have your own module and you can reach your application, the embedded application, through a tile. Now, if we click one of them, we will arrive to an embedded, you can say, a micro frontend. The header and the footer is part of the core, and the inner data table is the child, is the embedded external UI application. We are providing URL state syncing and deep linking functionality. If you think about it, changing routing in the child module, you may you want to bookmark the link or just share with your friend, with your coworkers, and that's why we have to sync up the URLs into the core, and we link back. And the next one is error handling. For the simplicity, if you don't want to deal with the not found page, just messaging to the core, and we will handle this. We will redirect the user to the not found page, and of course, we issue forward our JSON web token for the security. Thank you. I'm giving back the word to Balint.
Okay, thanks. Now let's talk about the aforementioned tool that we shall not be named due to it being an internally developed platform that enables teams to migrate to cloud and build cloud native applications in our company. We can call it a cloud automation suite. So the integration with this suite was mandatory for our team, and it came at the perfect timing because it enabled us to integrate with it module by module, and we were able to onboard a single module first and test everything beforehand before we pulled the trigger for each and every of our modules. This tool consists of multiple services that are interconnected to help the developer by providing solutions for fast prototyping. From the start, the developer can use templates that initialize his or her project. This includes the creation of the GitHub repository, the skeleton application in it, and some basic configuration next to it. All he needs to do is just add the business logic. Next to the generated repository, there are some configuration and code as descriptions, infrastructure as code descriptor files that are consumed by the tools provisioning and deployment solutions. This enables the development team to only focus on the interesting part, the business features. So when they are adding the business feature, they just push their codes and the CI/CD pipeline is pre-configured and it gets deployed into the AWS stack that is provisioned by this tool. In different environments, there are monitoring tools in place already set up and configured with the templates to out-of-the-box support different type of alerting and dashboarding solutions. And in the background, there are tons of other microservices that are connected to in a big ecosystem to help the teams in cost tracking situations where the development team needs to be found for a deployed stack. From the get-go, we were aiming to create a template in this tool that our team can use for different modules, and other teams can as well use who want to integrate to the Pacman platform. So now let's talk about all the benefits of this work. With this, each and every module can stay decoupled on both backend and frontend side. Teams only have to implement their business logic if the main conventions are followed, which is already given by our template in the tool, which is extremely speeds up the onboarding and development process. The template also provides the connection to the core application, which provides cross-cutting functionalities like authentication and authorization. This is also extended in our shared library that is pulled in by this template. For example, the auditing and publishing functionalities are in this library. And last but not least, as we mentioned before, the new module can be deployed with a fully integrated observability stack in place that is pre-configured by this template. So next up is the inner sourcing model, which is an approach where an internal proprietary solution is developed like an open source project inside the company. So this workflow looks like the following in our case. A new development team comes with their business requirements. They use the tool and our template to integrate with this platform. So they generate their code base, their Git repository, and their CI/CD pipeline. Then they add their business logic into the code base. They only have to test it locally with the integration and some Docker compose magic that is connecting together the Pacman core application, the shared libraries, and the module itself. After everything works, they push the code and deploy their application. Then they only have to create a single pull request where they set up the module itself for our Pacman core application, how they should connect. This is simply a URL where the module can be accessed. Then this whole module is pushed out into all of the environments, and then comes the profit. With this workflow, we follow conventions and do not enforce strict rules. This really speeds up the development, and the development team can fully own their own module, and no connection to us is really needed, only in the form of the integration PR. And we also created a 15-minute long video where we are generating a project from this template with this tool. And in 15 minutes, we push out our simple business logic into production, which is connected to the Pacman core application as well. And now let's hear some lessons learned from Csaba.
Thank you. I would like to talk about a few lessons that we learned during the development of this platform. Basically, we can call them lessons learned, but they are actually mistakes that we made, that we learned from, and we paid the price for it. So the first one, it's really interesting. We are using AWS S3 for our object store. S3 is a super simple solution, service, and strangely still there are very complicated attributes about it. The first thing that we learned is that if you have everything in one account, so the object creator, which is Pacman in our case, and the object store, which is S3, and the object consumer, which is a service, everything is in one account. How do you solve your problem? You don't have to solve your problem because there is no problem. It's super simple. You can read the data, you can define it anywhere. You can define it on the service side, on a role level, or on the S3 bucket side. Everyone can read in the account your data. There are no questions about it, but there are more interesting setups which we went through and we learned. The first one is where the object creator and the object store is in one account, but the service, the consumer service, is in a different account. When you want to access the data stored in the bucket, you have to declare it on a bucket permission definition. Again, this is totally straightforward. There are no much lessons learned here. This is common knowledge. You are updating your bucket permission definition, and that's it. The service, you are allowing the service to consume the objects that are there. The thing is getting trickier when you have your service in one account. You are creating an object there, but you are storing the object in a different account, in a different S3 bucket, which is consumed there. Actually, we faced the situation when we were keeping alive the old and the new stack, and we had to support cross-publishing functionality. So what happens in this case? It's not enough to define on the bucket permission definition that whoever should be able to consume that object. You have to define for each object a canned-ACL, and you have to set it as additional metadata where you are setting that bucket owner has full control. This way, whatever your S3 settings were earlier are actually taking into account, but without this, the service won't be able to consume the data that you were publishing. So we learned this the hard way. And if you paid a lot of attention for the previous 3 slides, you have a pretty good idea what is coming right now. Yep. So that's what happened when you have your service generating or creating an object in one account, you are storing the object in another account, and you have a consuming service which is in a third account. the previously listed ways how you enable access to that object will not work. There is on the AWS documentation on the really deep side, you can find a few words about it, and the solution is that you have to explicitly add a canonical user ID for each object, and that canonical user ID will describe which account should be able to consume that object. That canonical user ID is basically representing the account. It's like the account ID or the display name. These are just in examples. So before you have to hard code these canonical user IDs. Fortunately, we have a few accounts we are working with, so we were able to do this, and it's just a temporary measure, but still it was a pretty hard lesson to learn that it's not so easy to make your objects that are published available to be consumed. That was the first. The second lesson that we learned is around the abstractions. So abstractions, we learned at the university, are really important. You are extracting the common logic, you are abstracting away what you think that needs to be reused later on. We understood that we will be creating modules, and those modules can be similar to each other, but we didn't want to make the mistake of abstracting everything and realizing later that okay, it makes no sense because everything is different. Actually, every module is like a snowflake. They are different in many ways, but from a really, really high level, if you are stepping far from the module, you would see that for our first module, we have the business logic in Pacman, we have persistence in the database, we have some logic around exporting and importing data in Excel. We need to publish that data to an S3 bucket, and the consuming service is decoupled via the S3 bucket. Straightforward, no questions here. Still, we didn't do much abstractions at this point. Our second module arrived, and we were like, okay, I have seen this somewhere. It's pretty similar to the previous one. Still, we restrained ourselves, no abstractions. We duplicated what we could, what made sense to duplicate. We were waiting for our next module. Our third module arrived. There were no questions. Let's go ahead, abstract all the stuff that's related to S3 publishing, abstract everything that's related to Excel support and persistence. So we were really satisfied with ourselves at this point. So as you can imagine, our fourth module arrived, which was not even close to whatever we have seen so far. There were new elements, new models, we were consuming services, but we were thinking, okay, this is an exceptional case. We have seen our first three modules, we are going with that one. Of course, our fifth module arrived, which was again different from everything that we have seen so far. And the sixth module, okay, it's like the fifth one, but still we are seeing different patterns emerging. With our seventh module, please mind that the arrows are pointing now inside. That means that our small configuration management application is now behaving like a service because other services are consuming it. We had other different integration patterns, so all hell broke loose. With our 8th module, we were not even surprised that everything is different than expected. So what we learned here, what is the price that we paid? We had to re-implement 4 times anything that's related to Excel handling, because we were pretty confident that we know what they want, we know how they want to consume it, but every time it turned out that they need something totally different than in the previous case. On the UI side, we had a data table abstraction, which became really bloated for all the special cases, and we are still struggling with it even after the split. We have a ticket which was created maybe years ago around handling the persistence via abstract tools and models, because it became, whatever we envisioned, totally useless. We had the fun to participate in the postmortem, which looks like a long apology tour where we are introducing a lot of investigation results, and we are explaining why those production issues happened. And there is a different kind of review, is the correction of error, which was caused by a different kind of production issue, where we had to go in, correct, and again go to the root of the problem. For all of these cases, the problem was rooted in stuff where it turned out that we were abstracting where we shouldn't have to. That abstracting is really important and useful, but in our context, in our use case, it looks like it wasn't the right way to go. So whatever we see, you see in our core or core application or shared library is a very thin logic, and we are encouraging the reuse of whatever logic we created earlier, but the abstractions were really painful for us. There was another interesting situation with database connections. So if you know, AWS is calculating the maximum number of allowed database connections by this neat formula. It's pretty simple. It came down to 90 for us, I think, for a small instance type. At that point, we had one big cluster, and all of our modules were connecting to that cluster. As Zoltán was talking about the database split, this is the situation where we have one application with many modules, but all of those modules has their own database connections. And everything was working just fine. On the database side, there is a default setting which is called wait timeout, which is set to 8 hours, which means that if a connection has no traffic for 8 hours, the DB will deem that connection down or dead. On the other side, on the application side, there is a flag called test on borrow, which will retest the connection when it tries to pick it up, and it's by default it's false. Actually, we set it to true, but we had so many database connection configurations. It turns out that when you are doing this manually, you have to be explicit. It doesn't inherit a lot of default settings that you are doing in your application. And in addition, at this point, all the operators that were using the applications were out for the weekend. So this is a perfect storm for us. All these settings are like what I explained right now. The operators went home, nobody is using the application. So what is happening during the weekend? Our modules one by one are crashing because everything is running out of DB connections because of inactivity. So it's like a Formula One car. You cannot go too slow with it. If you are going too slow, you are killing it. So it turns out if you are not using our application with these settings, it goes down. Again, production issue, we learned it the hard way. There were another lesson around code modularity. Zoltán already touched base on this, so we went with the Gradle submodule approach. But actually, we take a deeper look at the Java platform module system. We were really excited about it. You know, it's there since Java 9, a lot of talk about it. Let's do it. We want to modularize our application. It's a great opportunity to go with it. But after taking a look at it, it turns out that still the tool and the library support is not that great for it. It's really cumbersome to fine-tune the transitive dependency, and there were issues with Spring compatibility too. As we were thinking about this, whatever we are doing here in the Java module specific side will be a throwaway code as we are going to the next step when the code is actually separated and goes into its dedicated repository. So it looked too much work for something that won't stay with the application, so we decided to go with the Gradle submodules. It's a more lightweight solution, still gives you whatever separation you wanted to do, but as Zoltán mentioned, again, some tool supporting is not that great around it. Our lesson was that if you can, you should go with the simpler solution, not the hyped one. Another thing that could be interesting is around dependency locking. The conclusion on our side was that just do it only when you are really committed to do it. And you have to use it in the right way. What I mean by the right way, it turned out that we used it in a way where we logged a bunch of dependencies, but there were also a lot of dependencies which were not logged, which resulted in constant regeneration of the log file, which updated for all the versions for all those dependencies that were not logged. And as you can see, it was not, you were never sure what happened here. So did I run the generate or did I not run? Was my dependency update picked up or not? This was working yesterday. I rerun the stuff and it's breaking today. And I'm always conflicting with someone because of this. So it was a lot of struggle for us. We even built a dedicated infrastructure where a Jenkins job picked up our repository, built the latest version, updated the dependencies. If the build was successful, it opened a pull request to our repository. But it was so much work and we didn't see the benefits of it. Again, if your situation or context requires this, please go ahead. But for us, it was too much trouble, so we moved away from it. And another thing that we faced quite a lot when we moved from a shared library to another, it turned out that there were a bunch of bean definitions in those libraries which we were not even aware of. So when our application started, picked up all of those beans, and there were some underlying logic that was happening, and we didn't even know about it. So that was scary to realize that were things that are happening and we are not controlling it and don't even know about it. So after further discussion and experience, when we created our new shared library, we decided that the shared code and logic can be in the library, but you have to and should be explicit on your application side. Whatever you want to pull, whatever you want to use, just be explicit, create a bean for it on your side, on your configuration side, and that's it. It caused a lot of problem again for us and around, I think, SSL certificates and health checks mostly. So we talked a lot. What you have seen, our platform is using these technologies. So on the front end, Angular is driving everything, so Angular and related technologies. And on the back end, it's Java and Spring Boot. Maybe it's worth mentioning Flyway that we are using for schema migration. And we are using Hibernate Anvers, which we haven't even heard about before we started all of this, which is responsible for the history and audit functionality out of the box. Everything is in AWS, and I think Zoltán or Victor mentioned the GWT token. That's what we are using for authentication and authorization purposes. Everything else is pretty standard, I think. We have, of course, plans for the future. We are planning to extend the platform with a parameter manager. It's like a configuration tool for the operations person, so whatever they can set up there should be reflected in their specific tools dropdowns. It doesn't sound like a big thing, but they are waiting for it like the holy grail. And no, it's not like Spring Cloud configuration. That's for the application, not the business. What we also are trying to build is the automatic module registration. You remember that Balint was talking about the inner sourcing model where the guys have to open a pull request with the URL of their application. So of course, we haven't spent too much time with it, but it's possible to update that and make it automatic. So whenever a module comes up, should be able to register itself automatically, tell that this is my backend, this is my UI, please generate my tile and take care of my authentication and authorization stuff on the core side. And we have LDAP integration right now, but we already have the design for the Okta SSO integration. These are our main plans. We have a timeline here just to show you guys that this was quite a big undertaking. As it was mentioned earlier, we had to support the existing functionality, we had to extend the existing functionality, we had to support both the old and the new world. A lot of users were migrating, a bunch of them not, a lot of services were migrating, a bunch of them not. So everything had to be synchronized. So we started at the end of 2018 with the database split, and we are in Q2, and we are working on the central parameter store, and there are already at least 2 new modules in the pipeline which are not created by us, but as picked up as the inner sourcing model that we touched based upon earlier. A few notable numbers. We are supporting 5 environments. We have 10 applications running right now. We own 45 buckets. We have 50 databases and 82 instances. So again, this is not some high load, high volume operation. We are solving different kind of problems, but still interesting. Okay, so I think this is the point where we can check the questions.
Yeah, there is one question in the YouTube comment section. So it's the question is about is Pacman open source? So the answer is we have to go back to the inner sourcing model. So we are behind non-disclosure agreements, and we are working for our clients. So unfortunately, Pacman is not open source, but it is in an inner sourcing model. So it is open source inside our company.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, then thank you for your time, and hope you enjoy the agenda further.
Hi everyone. After just a few technical details I needed to deal with, here I am. Welcome everybody who would like to listen to my continuous learning journey at EPAM, especially a learning journey of a person, a private story, so to say. So it is not going to be about my career, and I think everybody will have their takeaways from my story. But let me share with you first the platform of our cooperation today. Some of you have already found the Mentimeter platform. Yeah. What you can do is open up a new window, please, and go to menti.com, where you will need to use the code 479037, and please follow my instructions. First of all, it would be great if you could send me a thumbs up if you are in, because it's kind of feedback for me how many of you are following and whether you are following it at all. There might be some of you who don't receive the sound immediately, but I hope everything's gonna be fine with that. Okay, 3 of you. Good, good, good. The more the better. Good. Yeah, maybe the stream has started doing their job now. Okay, great. Okay. So guys, because there are so many of you present already, I would like to start up. Hi, how are you tonight? Let me introduce myself. My name is Krisztina Palyer. This is the bigger version of mine. Maybe some of you know me from the English classrooms at EPAM, or maybe some language schools in Szeged or Budapest, or maybe some training rooms I have conducted trainings in, and maybe some of my facilitative events you took part in. So hopefully we've met before. But today I won't be telling you about the steps of how I became what I'm doing now. Some other things. Let me just continue. So my name is Krisztina Palyer, and I've been with EPAM for 12 years now. You might be wondering how somebody can work for a company for this long, but actually it's not impossible, you will see. And I am working here as a soft skills trainer at the moment, and I would emphasize at the moment, because you will see there are plenty of things I'm having in mind and I'm going through. Sometimes I facilitate events, as I told, and actually I'm happy to have a job where I need to learn continuously. It may sound a little bit weird for some of you, but I think getting out of your comfort zone and learning something new is always something very positive, and it brings actually some positive vibes into your lives. For example, what I learned, it was on Friday, I learned how to get help remotely for my laptop. I had some issues with downloading the streaming application. And yesterday, I was shown how to stream a presentation. Hopefully, I will be able to remember all the details for my later career. And today, I've learned 2 new functionalities of Mentimeter while I was preparing this presentation. So I'm almost a Mentimeter guru, as you will see. And actually, I also learned how to try safely whether this Mentimeter looks good enough. And all this just for a 15-minute presentation and a 1-hour training I'm going to conduct. You might be asking why. I might ask back, what have you learned today? You can type it in. I'm really curious what you consider learning. It can be anything. Learning how to prepare certain food, learning about how to conduct, for example, a training, how to deliver a presentation, how to cook something, how to talk to people in a very polite way, how to greet somebody, maybe a new word in a foreign language, maybe something you have never seen before. Somebody, this platform Mentimeter, and how to run perfectly. Wow, wow, wow. Connect to MongoDB. I envy you, to be honest. I know just the name of this. Baking gluten-free cake. Sounds good. Maybe we should get in contact. I might be interested as well. It is, as you can see, not necessarily just piece of information you can learn, but there are some skills how to run perfectly, or outstanding presentation. Maybe somebody has delivered today an outstanding presentation. French onion soup. It might be useful for later on as well if you want to give your beloved ones something great. How to talk in meetings. Good, 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 good. A Flutter simple app. Yes, some people I have here connected to baking, maybe, because I have seen here more and more types of food. But somebody, how to use resources. How to use this MobiZ app. Something useful. Learning about learning. Goodness. Okay. Aspect of a technology. Okay. It is also very important. And actually, my colleagues who were there and gave a presentation, they might have delivered some thoughts to you which you learned about. It's good. It's always good to learn something. You may feel kind of power. This is one of the reasons, actually, why I've decided to lead you through my learning journey that is maybe not very visible for outsiders, but only for myself. This is a typical story which you don't necessarily share with others, not with an audience like this. I strongly believe in actually what happens deep inside a person. So real personal stories are more intriguing and fascinating to listen to, and bringing the audience a little bit closer to the person giving the talk, as if they were sitting around a fire at night, listening to the storyteller, imagining, almost seeing what they are telling about. Unfortunately, I myself won't be able to see my audience tonight, but I figured out something to make it more like sitting around the fire in a circle and exchanging thoughts with you, to make it real. You can get in touch with me via Mentimeter. Okay, let me get started with my story. Almost 30 years ago. You might be wondering, I wasn't a little child anymore. I was a teenager at the age of 16 at a secondary school, where my class was told we couldn't choose English as a second language besides German, as there weren't enough English teachers. Every one of us was very, very upset about that, maybe even furious, and we started to think about what we could do. Actually, not too much, as there weren't enough English teachers. You know what I did? Can you imagine? Just try to guess, I'm really curious. At the age of 16, a teenage girl, being furious about the situation of not having the opportunity to learn English in the 90s, where it was already necessary for us to know English and to learn as many foreign languages as we could. Oh, self-study. I became a teacher. Yeah, maybe a little bit, a little bit later. But that's a good approach. Okay. Any more guesses maybe you have? Okay. Learn English on your own. Maybe some of you know me quite well. Okay. Any more? Learn on your own. Learn Russian. Yeah, babysitting in the UK. Good idea, actually. Some of my grip mates did this, but a little bit later. Motivate people. Yeah, maybe motivate people to start learning together with me. Okay. Know someone with good English knowledge, maybe. Yeah, all these could have been very good opportunities to continue with. You know what I did? I went to a bookshop and bought the book Learning English with just a few words. The original title is Kavish Soval Angolul, and I started learning English by myself. I went through the book, which was 100 pages maybe, and I kept asking my roommates at the dormitory how to pronounce the words and let them explain things I couldn't understand. And actually, I continued for 8 years like this, from different English course books, also during my studies of German and Dutch at university. And again, a few years later, I was already teaching German at a secondary school where I was told it was a pity they had to terminate my contract as a substitute teacher because the colleague who was on maternity leave would come back. For those ones who know the language situation in Szeged, it's obvious that a degree of mine in German and Dutch is an impossible combination for earning a decent salary, especially at language schools and very often at secondary schools. So, what would you have done if you had been me in this situation? I was actually fired at the secondary school where I was teaching, and I had no hope to get another job in another secondary school, especially not as a Dutch teacher. To be honest, nobody has here Dutch teachers at secondary schools, I guess. Maybe German I could have taught at that time, but it is actually not typically a language which is chosen in Szeged very often. I think English is, on the one hand, more popular, but even French is more popular in some of the secondary schools. And I think, getting into a secondary school is kind of impossible, mission impossible, so to say, without having somebody who helps you getting in. So I'm really curious what you would have done. Somebody would have learned another foreign language. Okay, Russian. Guess what? Maybe English. I'd cry first, then try to find another job that I like. Yeah, this is a possible option to change careers because I think sometimes in some of the jobs you don't really have further opportunities or in a job market. A pen friend, yeah, maybe for getting married. Move to Germany or Austria. Yeah, this is something I thought about, to be honest. start teaching online before the dot-com boom and building a website for this business and hire more teacher. Wow, maybe I still can do this, but it's not a bad idea. Thank you for that. I owe you. Is there anybody else? Start English personal classes. Yeah, the thing was at that time my English wasn't good enough. I continued though learning from different books, but it was more like informal learning by myself, and there was not too much of a formal education in it. So I think it couldn't have been the best choice. So I was desperate. I just didn't know what to do. It was in the early summer. There was no chance to get new students for German lessons, not to speak about Dutch. And then I remember one of my colleagues at the secondary school told me they would start correspondence studies for English as a foreign language. I asked about the details, started learning English again to try myself at the entrance exam the following year, and I succeeded at the entrance exam. It was actually a fantastic feeling. I felt it was going to be the beginning of a beautiful journey to end up as an English teacher and earn a lot, and then I would be okay professionally. I went through the college years, got my degree, and did an additional program for teaching business English, and so that's it. I'm safe for the rest of my life. And I started teaching for more language schools at the same time. Everything was running smoothly, and I had many grips. What do you think happened at this moment when I felt absolutely safe, being okay with my career, being maybe in the best position of my previous career? I'm really curious what you think happened. Some of you may know the situation. Okay, anybody? I'm really curious what you think, because I felt absolutely safe at the very moment when I needed to start thinking. Okay, then some kind of crisis, a miracle. Okay. Got bored in your I'm the type actually who gets bored in my routine. I got offered a German teacher job. No, unfortunately not. My position wasn't really cancelled, but you know what happened? For many different reasons, language schools started becoming too expensive for people, and the courses were disappearing. Language teachers could only teach for companies as they were the only ones who could pay their fees. But for most of the companies, general English was obviously not enough in their course. They wanted to have business English courses. Okay, it wasn't a huge problem. I went through the business English program at the teacher training college as well, but I need to say it was still quite hard to get used to new kind of English and to questions that were extremely hard to answer. You know what they asked? How do you need to say this? How do you have to formulate that one in a meeting? These things were absolutely unknown for me as I haven't ever participated in an English speaking meeting. I learned it from books. And while I was teaching at the language school, I was asked to teach for EPAM as a contractor as well. And to be honest, after 2 years, I was teaching only for EPAM and actually business English. And it was like more than 20 hours a week, so it was perfect. I thought I don't need to move between different companies. Everything is fine. I was already teaching business English well, and I thought everything was going to be fine now. And there was a little difficulty I needed to deal with. What do you think it could have been? You know, it is actually the thing is, it was the students. Although I was teaching business English well, they needed something different again. They were complaining. They wouldn't understand the customers in the meeting. They had customers with different accents, from different cultures, different habits, different working styles. Communication styles they weren't able to deal with, and many other problems that were related to their everyday work, which actually needed to be done mostly in English. And at this point, I became desperate again. How would I be able to deal with all these aspects of the use of English language? How could I help my learners in the English courses to deal with all this stuff? And to be honest, I was wondering how they can perform in such a difficult environment. I thought I wouldn't be able to survive in an environment like this. But we were in good terms, they were my colleagues, and I really wanted to help them. So I started to listen to them, what exactly their problems were, and started learning about them and bringing all the stuff to the English lessons. And we were experimenting together, whether this or that would work. And then they came back to me and reported on their success and also on some further difficulties. And you know what I decided to do at this point? I started learning about how they work, what exactly they do in their daily jobs, and what their difficulties are. And then I started to investigate what soft skills are needed to succeed in an English speaking environment at a multinational outsourcing company where the vast majority of information is written and needs to be used in English, where people work in teams with multiple nationalities and cultural background, very often distributed teams spread over the continent. And I ended up teaching English courses on soft skills basis. And after a while, soft skills trainings as well. And by doing this, I needed to learn many new things and skills, which made grow up, so to say, to be able to conduct soft skills trainings as well. And here I am. At the moment, I'm conducting soft skills trainings, but I don't know yet what the future holds for me on my learning path. I hope the story will continue in a very positive way. And I thank you for your attention. Just a tiny little question for the end. What is your takeaway from this story? This is maybe the most important part of the whole conversation. And I can just hope having people's minds throughout the whole session and being able to give you something. Learn, learn, learn. Wow, wow, wow. Change is a new opportunity, for sure. And this is what I've experienced both in my learning career and not only in my learning career, but throughout my whole life. Never stop learning and never give up. Giving up, I thought very often of giving up, but I think it is not an option for me until I have my energies. And you have to wake up at 5:30 and work to change your life in person. Wow, what a beautiful sentence. Never give up and always be agile in the ecosystem. Thank you so much. This must have been my colleagues, really. Never give up. I hope you take it away and you learn, grow, and succeed in your careers at EPAM and wherever you are. Thank you very much for your attention. I cannot take questions at the very moment because I need to continue with the training I'm going to deliver on self-motivation. But I hope for those ones who are already present and have listened to my talk, they will be able to, so to say, get some things out of this little speech for the self-motivation part. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you in my training on self-motivation, which I'm going to start in a minute. I just need to change my screen. Thank you very much. With my presentation for self-motivation, the platform for interaction is going to be Mentimeter again. For those ones who haven't been there at my previous speech, you need to open a window, go to menti.com and use the code 9943N20 just to be able to enter the interactive platform. Please follow my instructions. And I would be grateful if you could send me a sign if you are in, so I can see that you are available for the training. Yeah, at least one person is already there. 2. Good. Okay, so you have already started getting connected. Okay. Self-motivation, this is the title of today's mini training I'm going to deliver you. And this will focus on what you can do for yourselves. Just ask yourselves. But before we start getting deeper into the topic, I would like to refer to your motivation. What motivates me? What motivates you? Could you give me some hints? It is always interesting to discover yourselves, to discover what motivates you, and to see whether you can change anything about that. So that's why it's extremely important to see what the motivating factors for you are. Somebody's kids and positive feedback. Positive feedback is always a very, very important thing. And I guess everybody can be extremely energetic when receiving positive feedback about them. Learning, I can absolutely agree. New knowledge. Thinking about a complex problem, okay. Reaching a goal. Okay. Family, very, very important. But recognition at the same time as well, of course. When you make something unforgettable, absolutely. When you build some awesome tools, wow. Helping people, when you improve yourselves. Beautiful, great. Family seems to be the central topic for many of you. It's good to see that there are also other factors in what motivates you. Which of these motivators are important to you in your jobs? Please try to rank them in order what's very important for you at the first place and what's the least important for you at place number 10. These can be honor, that you are honored by people around you who know about what you are doing. Status can be a very motivating factor for some of you, or relatedness to other people, or being accepted by other people. Maybe what motivates you is power. or freedom, that you can do whatever you want, of course, within a certain framework, or maybe mastering a skill, mastering your professions, mastering something which is important for you. Curiosity, which brings you actually to discover new depth in yourselves, maybe, or maybe the world around you, or maybe new knowledge, information you haven't known before. Another things might be order, which we haven't mentioned yet. And there was one more thing, a goal. And I see so far goal has the leading role here. At least 3 of you must have voted more or less for that as number 1. But freedom seems to be very important as well, and honor. Oh, maybe mastery and curiosity, which helps you getting more accepted in your profession, and maybe something that gives you satisfaction while you are doing either your jobs or your hobbies. Never forget about your hobbies. Or maybe something you do for your family, for your beloved ones. But still, being accepted by others and relatedness seem to be very important for some of you as well. As far as I can see, there are plenty of very, how to say, mind people who don't really say that status and power and order are very important for them. Okay, that's absolutely fine. I can agree with that. But of course, it is your choice. It's always up to you what you choose. Which of these motivators do you get in your current role? We shouldn't forget about when you are working for a company in a certain role, it must be one of the very important factors to get your motivators to keep running, to keep delivering, to keep performing. Not only because you want to be at 100%, at least, of what can be delivered, but also for yourselves, just to be able to get up every single morning with a feeling that you will do here something very important and maybe interesting, something that frees you up or feeds your curiosity and shapes your mastery. For some of you, mastery is extremely important, and you get it as well. Okay, it's very good. And acceptance is also present in your roles. Very good. Freedom. Congratulations for that. Because if you've got freedom in your jobs and you love your jobs, it will bring you further and it will feed your inner drive to be able to connect and relate to your jobs very well. And curiosity is also present. You get room for curiosity in your jobs, and acceptance as well. You are honored and you get status as well, and power, order. Good. It's just interesting that order, power, and status weren't at the highest level when you were voting. Okay. Still, the winning trio is acceptance, freedom, and mastery. So this is what you get. Good. Okay. Now let's take a look at those motivators you don't get out of these 10. Maybe these are going to be less important for you and you don't care. Maybe these ones are things that you don't consider being important for yourselves, for your careers, for your well-being, for your motivation to get up on Monday mornings and start working. So some of you don't get any fuel for curiosity. Some of you don't get fuel for status, order, and power. Okay. But we will see whether it's important at all for you. It is actually a pity if you don't get honored, because it's always a very important thing that you do things here which are based on actually kind of certain human aspect. And I feel pity for somebody who doesn't really get freedom as a motivator. Think about this. I think it's a very important thing to consider your situation now. Do you get your most important motivators of them? If you think about this, then you will maybe arrive at a point where you see that some changes are needed. You can even take a piece of paper and write it down for yourselves. What do you think? What can you do for your own motivation? Motivation that will fuel your inner drive and make you feel energetic, make you go on, go the extra mile. Maybe you can do yourself something that keeps you working, keeps you being happy in your professions, in your hobbies, with your family, makes actually feel you that you are living here for something important. It is worth being here for you. What you can do for your own motivation is maybe changing your jobs if you don't get what you want. It is also a technique you can use. It is like avoiding confrontation, but maybe you can do something different as well. Maybe the person who has written this has considered every other aspect already, and none of them worked. Find a new perspective to look things at. Try to find new features of a challenge or a task. Give acknowledgement to myself. Wow. And upload results myself. Wow. Very good. Maybe even writing them and putting them on your fridge works well. Okay. Success in things I do. Okay. Absolutely. So the feeling of being successful can fuel your motivation. Step back for a minute and review or analyze our life and change the unlikely things. Or maybe things you are not really satisfied with. Maybe you can do even more. Maybe you can be even more proactive. Maybe you can devote less time to disturbing things and more time to motivating things. Sounds very, very, interesting. Okay. And actually, absolutely okay. Focus on other non-job related stuff, which I like to do. Absolutely. But never forget about, in this case, you haven't solved a problem maybe you face at your workplace, and you try to hide and don't waste energies on changing anything which might be changeable. So if you don't try, maybe you won't be able to change anything about that. Now, let's change our mindset. It's not like I can't change things and I don't need to leave my job or concentrate on just my hobby just to be able to feel motivated and focus on anything else, only the one thing I want to change, not. There are 6 vital skills for self-motivation you can work with. Set realistic and smart goals. Realistic means not very difficult and not very easy. Realistic ones, which you know for sure you are able to do. And smart goals, these mean that the goals are actually also measurable, whether you have done them at all. Of course, time bound, not like I will do it sometimes in the future, maybe. No, I will do it next week or by the end of next week. And of course, smart goals mean at the same time as well that you may achieve them and you set them in a way that they are obvious for you, that they are there. Take the right level of risk. It means if you try to do very risky things all the time, maybe you won't ever succeed. It's a very important thing to see what risk you can take, especially if you know about yourselves that you can get very easily nervous and you break down in these situations. It doesn't make sense to face all these challenges. Seek feedback to be able to improve. If you never ask around what you performed like, whether you can be satisfied with yourselves, then maybe you won't ever get to know that you overperform. Very often people overperform or do more than expected, and still they can't believe they are doing so. So ask for that. Not only for improvement, but I would suggest do it also for yourselves, just to be able to see how you do things. Commit to goals. And if you have committed, go the extra mile. You will never reach your goals if you don't go the extra mile. You will never develop. It's very important. It is very uncomfortable sometimes, or at least a little bit uncomfortable, but still learning will happen and you will have a sense of achievement in this case. Seek and seize opportunities. Never close your eyes and never think that you don't have any opportunities. Opportunities are there. They are out there. They are sent to you. They are offered to you. You just need to realize them and then seize them. Seizing is another very important aspect of this because sometimes I see that people look for opportunities but don't have enough energies or don't put into enough efforts to seize those opportunities. So do that. And pursue your goals despite the obstacles. This is actually the very trendy term of resilience. L&D has a training on that. Don't forget about that. How to survive in a situation where you're pursuing your goals even though there are plenty of obstacles. Do that. It is worth and try to develop this. So these are the 6 vital skills for self-motivation. What do you think? Which of these skills are your real strengths? You can choose 2 of them. And it's very important to identify these strengths. You can build upon them. It's very useful to know about what your strengths are. You can get back to them anytime and think of, this is where I can start. This is where I need to build upon. And hopefully, This way you get energized, and it's going to be very easy for you to take the very first step, which will make you succeed step by step. 1 mile is just like 800 steps. So 800 times just a little step, and you are over the 1 mile. Okay, some of you said taking the right level of risk is their real strength. And another one, seeking and seizing opportunities. Oh, going the extra mile for my goals. A very energetic person. Maybe they have a very energizing hobby, or maybe people they can connect to, or maybe something, an inner drive, which keeps them going on, which gives them the satisfaction they need to be motivated in their lives. Yeah, realistic and smart goals. I envy those people who have always realistic and smart goals, especially those ones who can do it in a smart way. And pursuing your goals despite the obstacles. Absolutely. Respect for you. And there must have been more people who can go the extra mile for their goals if it's needed. And this is their real strength. Okay. Seeking and seizing the opportunities was very strong with some of you as well. Okay, guys. So this is what you can build upon. Never forget about this. How can you maintain your motivation? This is another question which is very often asked me. What I can give you as advice, which I have already told many times, learn continuously. This is my job, but this is a piece of advice I can tell anybody, not only my children, but everybody who comes to me. What they need to do is, number one, is learn continuously. This is what you can do actually if you just look around and follow what's given and seize the opportunities at EPAM, for example. Spend time with motivated and enthusiastic people. And I would say not only motivated and enthusiastic people, but for example, children or family members who have kind of loving life attitude, because they will give you so much energy that you can't really believe, really. These people actually can inspire you in your life. So if you have team members, for example, around who are really enthusiastic about what they are doing, then I would suggest have a coffee with them at least once a week, just to get some energy. Maybe you will be able to re-inspire them. Cultivate a very positive mindset. You don't need to see all the time what was wrong, what you made wrong, or what didn't go well, but what went well, what you learned from a situation, what a positive outcome was. And build your resilience. You can build your resilience even though there are obstacles. You go through them, and step by step, you somehow get to your goal, even if there are many other side tracks you need to enter. You reach your goal, and you do it in a sane way. So this is another very important thing. You need to remain very positive still about your lives. Don't forget about what we were doing already, identifying your strengths. Of course, weaknesses as well, but strengths should be even more important, because you can get the energies out of that, and you can actually work on them. If you've got a weakness, start working on that. And this way, you will get further, and maybe one of your weaknesses will become, in a year or maybe even in a shorter period, one of your strengths. You just need to go the extra mile and work on them. Avoid procrastination. Maybe my husband is smiling at this sentence because I'm this type, but I'm making progress. You really need to know. This wastes plenty of energies, really. Swallowing that frog, eating that frog, and doing those things which you wouldn't really love to do, but you need to, it's better to do it first. And then you experience a relief. And never forget about working on your time management skills, which is not only about managing how many minutes you will spend on reading your emails, but also on how much of energy you have, balancing your energy, putting in more efforts to relax and have fun as well, to energize, to get full again and recharge your low batteries. Get help when you need it. Ask for help. Never forget about you ask for help on one day and you will help others on another one. They will succeed, which might inspire you. They will become enthusiastic and the circle starts over and over again. So you can get help, you just need to ask for. What do you think? What do you need to make use of these ones I have told you more often to be able to maintain your motivation? Is it time management? Or maybe avoiding procrastination? Helping others? Or maybe asking for help? Maybe being in the company of enthusiastic people? Or doing something great? I'm really curious what you think. Let me show you. I don't dare to get back with one of my slides because there might be some technical issues. I'm looking forward to getting some feedback on how to maintain your motivation. Maybe it's up to the time we have it in, but people don't seem to be very active, or maybe there is the delay. Time management and enthusiastic people. Making use of this will help you for sure. Avoiding procrastination, time management. Okay. Time management is written a little bit bigger, which means more people have chosen this. So it's in the focus of many of you. I would give you as advice, don't think of the minutes you spend on things. Think about energy and count everything in wasted or not wasted, effectively used or not effectively used energies. And never forget about relaxing. Okay, enthusiastic atmosphere as well. Checking your bank account, which gives you satisfaction as well because you don't need to worry, which would take away your energies. Never forget about this. Worrying is also an energy wasting thing, which won't help with your time management. Positive mindset. Good, good, good. Okay. And asking for help. So, fire away, guys. Stage is yours in this. Always when I ask people what I think about things, it is on my mind telling them and somehow suggesting them start doing something. One step. One step is enough for climbing a mountain. It starts with the first step. If you never make the first step, you won't ever climb any mountains, not even a hill. Okay, positive mindset and avoiding procrastination. I see there are so many people in the same shoes as me. Okay, guys, we can get back to each other and have a conversation over coffee related to that. So let's boost your energy levels. We're going to build on what you can be proud of. Think of things you can be proud of. Maybe you have a greatest achievement on mind. Or maybe you have made a best decision at some time in your life where you can be really proud of, and you are always thinking, oh Jesus, this was my best decision ever. What do you think? What do people think you're good at? Do they think you're good at maybe something related to your jobs, your family life, your hobbies? And you can be proud of that. Have you learned to do something recently? This gives also a sense of achievement or a very positive boost of your energy levels. What can you do if you really want to? Just think of, maybe I can run 3 kilometers. I've tried it. No, I haven't actually tried it recently, but maybe I can do that. Have you helped others recently? It also gives kind of satisfaction, sense of achievement again, that you helped somebody doing something. And what has your proudest moment been recently? All these questions will help you formulating something which will boost your self-motivation. What you will start doing tomorrow for your self-motivation. The very first step. Something that you will do. You promise yourselves. If you write it in English, I would start, if I were you, like, I will do this or that, because this is a promise for yourselves. And I will keep quiet now, so you are going to be able to think about it. The first ones are already arriving, but I will wait for 1 more minute. Okay. I would like to congratulate to the person who will list at least 3 positive things per day to switch to positive mindset, because it will boost their energy levels. And I can congratulate someone else as well who will think more positively. Don't forget about SMART goals are extremely needed. So set a time for that and set a certain measure whether you were successful or not. So you can measure for yourselves just to have a sense of achievement. And there was somebody else as well who will look at the positive side of everything. Okay. Again, never forget about having a SMART goal, even for the first step. This will help you. This will help you go through the whole procedure. One step, again, one step, and then you've gone the extra mile. There was one more person who I would like to congratulate for having the decision. They will wake up at 5 a.m. Wow. And start the day with a cold shower after learn a new design pattern in Java. Wow. I envy you really, and I guess your career will boost like this, and your motivation level as well. Never forget about celebrating after each step, after each measurable goal you have reached, because it will further help you on your long journey of continuous learning. Let me congratulate to someone who wrote they will start planning what they want for themselves and the family. And thank you for mentioning not only for yourselves, but the family as well, because this is one of the key success factors. And start planning tomorrow or maybe next week. You set the goals, but never forget about set the time as well. Otherwise, you won't be able to see whether you've done it. Let me congratulate to somebody who will administer their goals, to pursue, and to be proud of when reached. Very good. I wasn't joking actually with the fridge. So put your goals somewhere where they are visible for you all the time, because this will remind you all the time where you are heading, and it will lead you through the path you need to go. It is your decision, your inner drive, and it will go hand in hand with you and remind you wherever you are that you will reach your goal at a certain moment. You just go the extra mile, one by one. And let me congratulate to the 7th person who promised themselves to exercise more and take down some short-term, low-hanging fruit kind of goals. This is also a very important factor to have an easy goal for the first time. And when you see you could reach that goal, you are able to do that. It will give you satisfaction, sense of achievement, and it will actually give you an inner drive, enthusiasm as well, which will feed your energy levels further. Thank you very much for sharing this, and thank you very much for listening to my talk. I hope I could make it interactive enough for you, just to make it enjoyable and not very, kind of presentation like. And I hope your takeaways will come through. Sorry. So this is the best time for new beginnings. This is now, and I can wish you just all the best for your later careers, for your later lives, with your families, with your kids, with your relatives, friends, and hobbies. And I hope this little session was a good investment for all of you to remember that you shouldn't ever give up. You can ask for help if you are in trouble. Seek for enthusiastic people like the ones who were there at dinner time and listened to a 1-hour session, were interactive throughout the session and wanted to get their takeaways. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, just contact me at my EPAM email address. I will be happy to answer them. And I hope I will close the session now, just to give the chance for others as well to get on stage. Thank you. And see you in one of our trainings. Never forget about that.